Hey, Scott Fox, it's so lovely to have you here.
Hi, Susie. Good to be here.
Um, Scott is my dear friend, and Scott is how we're going to talk a little bit about this, aren't we, in a minute? Who are we? How do we even begin to
Right.
introduce ourselves? But one of the layers of your multi-layered, multifaceted self is that you are founder of Champion Playbook, where you specialize in helping athletes play their best by removing mental and emotional blocks using novel what was it, no
Techniques?
techniques, cutting edge techniques in the world of energy psychology. Is that right?
Yes, that is exactly right. Yes. And yeah, it is funny though how we introduce ourselves and how much we
Mm,
identify with fill in the blank. For a lot of people, and
mm,
myself included, has been a business. It's like, what do you do? And it
mm,
depends on what culture you're from. But here I live right outside Washington, D.C. And man, we are in the world of, hey, what do you do for a living?
mm.
And
I hate that
it's how you
question.
start. Yeah, it's how you start to identify yourself, and I'm
Mm,
definitely more than that, but it's what we default to depending on the culture. And I
mm,
know that in other parts of my country, um, it's more laid back, and so people will say, "Hi, I'm Scott. I like to go hiking." They identify
mm,
what they like to do, which is a much more sane, I think, approach to identifying oneself. But it does get into a question of what the heck are we? You know,
mm.
what are we?
I actually have a sign up in front of me that says, "Ask me about my rich inner life." Maybe we could start with that in future. Hey,
Yes,
Scott,
yes, that's right.
talk to me of your rich inner life.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's I was thinking about this question of identification, and one of the fun people of YouTube, when you get to hear people of old that are still around because of YouTube and recordings of them, it is really special. And one of my absolute favorites is Alan Watts. And if you've ever listened to him, first off, you all over in the UK automatically sound more intelligent to me and a lot of Americans because of your accent. Well, you don't have an accent. We have an accent, right? Um,
Oh, we
and
definitely
Alan
have an
is
accent in Liverpool.
in Liverpool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. There are multiple accents within the UK for sure, just like there are in the US. And, Alan Watts has many great speeches that are on YouTube and soliloquies. And one of them is talking about the greatest game of the universe, which is hide and seek, is what he says. And it's because,
Mm,
what we truly are, back to identification, is a piece of divinity, that universal oneness that is out there. And
mm,
that is what each one of us is. That's what everything is. It is a piece of the one consciousness that has decided to come to earth in the form of a human being and pull the wool over our own eyes so that we can forget that we are divinity and we can experience this roller coaster of earth school and feel all sorts of shit.
whilst we discover who and what we are. Hey, yeah.
Yes, while we seek ourselves, we are hiding from
Mm,
ourselves as we seek ourselves. And there
mm,
is Alan's statement of the greatest game of the universe. Yeah.
mm. I love that. Although you're a coach specifically for athletes, and perhaps other coaches as well, this podcast is. I really want to speak to people who have a wild inner knowing that they have a lot more to give and a lot of magic to shine out into the world, but perhaps find fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not meeting expectations, perhaps even their own expectations. They keep bumping into that, and so they find that fear holds them back, perhaps from shining as brightly as they can. I know that one of the things that you use with coaches is emotional freedom technique, and that works to release, stress and fear and tension in the body. Would you speak more to the science of that and how it can be effective for everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do work with a lot of athletes and coaches, also general population, but mostly everybody has some kind of tie to an athletic history. Even somebody I just randomly got as a client, um, turns out, she was quite an equestrian in her day. So it's funny how we attract people who, resonate with who we are too. And yeah, EFT, so emotional freedom techniques, is one of the great tools that I like to use because it works, number one. And I've been using it for about 16 years with a variety of people in sports, athletes. And it also has been clinically studied. And so, in the world of energy psychology, and we'll call it alternative solutions out in the world, not a lot of them have been clinically studied. And I don't need that anymore. But for the traditionalists that I bump into, they like that. EFT has been deemed evidence-based technique, and that has to meet a certain criteria set forth by the APA, the American Psychological Association. And so it's the real deal. And even the US government has approved the use of EFT for the treatment of veterans with PTSD. Lots of initials we're using here. And thank goodness that they have, because it is a gift. It is I call these little miracles that can happen when we use great solutions like EFT. Veterans who tried traditional solutions, talk therapy, pharmaceuticals, et cetera, they just don't receive, some of them don't recover because of those, or they don't recover in general. And then they come across EFT if they're lucky, and many of them do recover. And when I say recover, I mean they are cured. They fall out of the spectrum of PTSD, and it's a miracle for them. It changes their lives. It changes the lives of the people around them, like their family members. So how does it work? Well, here's what I think the science would say, and then we can talk about what else is going on theoretically. When we tap on our body, a little electrical signal gets created. We don't see it, we don't feel it so much. It's called a piezo electric signal, and that electric signal travels through the fascia of the body, and it reaches the amygdala in our brain. And so while we are engaging in a memory or a feeling of a situation that is awkward, rotten, fearful, all of these quote negatives that are out there, if we can have that juxtaposition of that negativity inside of us in our brain, and the tapping, which is providing an electrical signal to that area of our brain that is involved in memories and emotions, it seems to provide a counter conditioning so that that negativity is enveloped, we'll call it, in this field, this energy of positivity. And I'm giving, layman's terms here, so that the brain and the body can have a different perspective about the situation that either they are in at the moment or that they remember, from the past. And when that happens, all of a sudden we revert to neutrality, I'll call it. And when humans are neutral, we're pretty amazing. We don't have to be like, positive. And I'll give you examples of that with my clients. I only played football, American football and baseball growing up. Yet I have clients in various sports that will work with me, and they'll go out and they'll play better. They'll have an objective reading, meaning they've run faster or they've swam faster. All sorts of different things come up. And that's kind of fun with sports, is that you do have objective data. Either you played better or you didn't following the EFT session. And, you know, when they reach that state of neutrality on an issue, the body gets freed up. The energy that was being used to protect oneself from this old memory or the fear that is associated with it, all of a sudden gets set forth to do, put forth to do whatever it is we want to do. And it's amazing. And again, I don't coach any athletes on how to perform their sport better. Um, that would be a cool trick on people. They would think, oh, gosh, Coach Fox, he knows all of these sports because all these different athletes play better. What an interesting guy. That's not it at all. I just know a technique or few techniques that can quickly identify and remove these unseen blocks so that these athletes can perform better and I'll say feel better slash enjoy their sport more.
Mm. And so that would also speak to someone who's wanting to put out their art into the world, or poetry,
100%.
or start their own business, or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever their
yeah,
path.
yeah. And so, look, the end game with my business or my vision is not so much about athletes getting to be the best and perform well. Yes, I like that. I played sports and I went through college, and I think sports are really cool because for lots and lots of reasons, and we can talk more about. But the real thing is, I want these younger people to recognize that they're more than flesh and blood, because there is a non-physical aspect to what's happening on this reprogramming. And secondly, that there's greatness that lies ahead if we can learn how to remove these hurdles that are in front of us, these fears. And believe me, I specialize in creating fears of my own. So I am not immune to any of this. And I think that I used to criticize myself about it. I was embarrassed. It's like, how can somebody who's been doing this for all these years still have fears? And I think that's so common amongst coaches and anybody in general. An artist is like, oh, I can't put this out here. I'm not perfect. Well, I think that what I've come to conclude is that um, I am a good coach. I am a good practitioner because I still have, these things that I work on. And, it's an interesting topic as well. I forgot what the conversation where it was going. So,
Well, no, that's
oh,
perfect, because I think what I so appreciate about coming to you is that you're not one to bypass the pain. You know that it's always going to be like a 50-50. We're here to feel it all, I think.
yeah.
And that's what I always appreciate with you, that you have such a you're never going to be like, come on now, Susie, just raise your vibration. You really
Yeah.
really you understand that we can work through it and move through it, but you're not one to bypass it either. And I always value that so
Well,
much.
it's funny. I thank you. Yeah, I thank you for saying that. Part of me says, well, try to spend the first few decades of my life, and maybe the first 5 decades of my life, I did try to avoid pain
Mm.
greatly, greatly. And I think that's part of the reason that I was attracted to EFT, is that I thought, here's a way I can avoid even more pain. And that is true. It is true. What I'm also learning is that EFT and other methods sometimes can create just a total tidal wave that wipes out, every hurdle on some issue. Most of the time, for myself, what it does is that it lowers the fence. So a 10-foot high fence. Okay, give me enough time. I'll be able to get over it. But boy, it's rough. And so I use EFT to lower that fence so that, okay, it's 2 feet tall now. It's still there, but I can step over it. Right.
Mm.
And that's
Yeah.
where I think it's good. I just have this feeling. I was mentioning to somebody else in my world recently that, you know, I've just come to the conclusion that for my own personal journey here on earth is that probably am supposed to have these painful moments and actually go through them as opposed to
Mm.
around them,
Mm.
and still learning that because a part of me was well trained to create a scenario where I just did not have to.
Mm.
And being a clever human with lots of compensatory patterns here, I was able to do that and still, create a quote successful life from societal standards.
Mm.
Ultimately, though, resulting in a situation where I really was not fulfilled because I was living society's standards instead of learning who I am. Know thyself, as they say, and then operate from that spot. So that's what I hope for my clients too, is to learn from my journey of this, which is, hey, you're going to play better in sports. How did I do that, coach? Well, you use these techniques. What else can those techniques be used for? Can lower the hurdles on some stuff, and you can dream, and you can do amazing things, and you can explore yourself, and you know, play hide and seek.
Mm, I love that. When you speak a lot in the of outdated beliefs and methods. It's in the sporting world, but I think it applies to everything. You speak about, how traditional methods like pushing harder, tougher discipline don't always help athletes overcome their performance slumps. And I feel like this is very similar in starting up our coaching business or our podcast or putting our writing or, art or whatever it is into the world. Um, Often we're kind of left with those old programs of fear, that conditioning of I've just got to push harder, suffer, grind, graft, keep, it's like solar plexus driven, kind of
Yeah.
that fighting, pushing, suffering, really. Would you speak a little to of how do we overcome that conditioned fear and kind of know that we have to take the messy action to keep stepping forward, but also create more freedom around that old programming, have more
Yeah.
ease?
Yeah. So I think that it's been best articulated. Okay, we're going to go in here. Here we go. Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Let's
best
go.
articulated by the entity that is channeled by Daryl Anka called
Right.
Bashar.
Love a bit of
And
Bashar.
Bashar has been around. Bashar has been around for a long time. I mean, he's probably outside of time, but Daryl has been channeling Bashar for 40 years. And the teaching of that I really resonate with is, follow your highest excitement.
Mm.
And within that highest excitement, first off, is to recognize it, because a lot of people say, I don't know what I'm excited about. And I get that. I understand, because after years and years and decades of society saying, you have to do this, you have to do that, you got to do this, don't do that, you get squashed, and you may have lost, your awareness of what really makes you happy when you think about it. And then when you think about it, your heart lights up and your brain jumps in and says, yeah, but right, there's something there it's gonna say, yeah, but you don't have the education for that, or yeah, but you don't have a suit, or yeah, but there's a gazillion yeah buts that your brain brings in, and for good reason. Their brain's not evil. It's there for one thing, and that's to protect you so you can stay alive. It's about survival for the brain. That's it.
Mm.
And if we can recognize that, and then get into the heart, learn how to run things through the heart, and see, do you light up when you think about it? That's what you start to move forward with. And then within there, there's still going to be some fear, no question about that. And those fears are related to some kind of definitions that we have been given and accepted uh, about ourselves, about the world. It's limitless things there. And that's again where EFT and some other techniques can be used to reduce the hurdle of those things, and perhaps get a little clear-headedness. That's a great byproduct, by the way, of doing EFT, is
Mm.
from a physiological standpoint, it starts to get the clutter caused by cortisol out of our brain, out of our body, so that we can be receiving information that is more resonant with who we truly are, and we can act accordingly.
Yeah, it's the yeah, I love that. The phrase, I'm trying to think of the phrase as you speak there, the non-resistance plus desire equals desired result. I think I've got that right. How, when we're faced with resistance, which I think is a lot of the time that kind of where almost suffering rather than being in a place of more allowing, How do we
Oh yeah.
overcome that? How does your techniques help us to overcome that resistance that I
Yeah.
can't? Oh, this is, I don't have the money to start this. I'm not good enough. All of the gunk. How do
Yeah.
we
I think
overcome
through
resistance?
through ongoing use of this. So I have met people who've said, "Oh yeah, I heard of EFT. I tried it one time, and yeah, it's just not for me."
Mm,
Well, I say to that is the same thing of anything, which is like, yeah, I lifted weights one time, and yeah, I kind of felt it, but I just don't want to do that or
mm,
anything. Humans are not built to have one-time experiences. Once in a blue moon, a human has a revelatory experience that is life-changing, and that's great. I've never had that.
mm,
99% of, or even more, humans have not. What we respond to is stress, and I mean that in a positive sense too. If we are subjected to stress and then have a process that we use over and over and over and over again, repetition seems to be the way humans learn and adapt and physiologically adapt as well. Um, so how do we deal with stuff, which is to buy into a process, and there's a gazillion of them out there, and use it over and over. And again, whether it's
mm.
meditation, EFT, combination thereof, I like the body. There's things to do with the body that can help too. I think at the end of the day, if we wanted to just summarize it, it's move energy. When in doubt, move energy.
Oof.
And yeah, I mean, and sometimes, man, there's just massive doubt. And just like, what the hell do I do? I feel
Mm,
terrible. I don't know what to do. I'm not doing what I'm quote supposed to do. And again, when in doubt, move energy. So take a walk. That's moving energy.
mm.
Um, EFT is certainly moving energy.
Yeah.
Do something that can open you up to, again, more clarity. And I got other things to say about that too, but I'll let you talk.
Oh no, please.
Well, I
Please
was going to say
talk
the
to
other
us of
thing then
clarity.
is, yeah, the other thing is, you know, I have a belief system that includes that we are multidimensional entities, and that there are other multidimensional entities that are available to us. I'm using very, awkward language kind of, but in the world of spirituality and even religion, call on your angels, call on your
Mm,
guides.
mm,
Whether you're an indigenous person who grew up with some belief system about your elders and your guides, and you can use that verbiage, or you're in a traditional religious setting, ask for an angels to help you. And um, yeah, I say pull out all the stops on this kind of
mm,
stuff. And then
mm,
that's been an evolution for me. I grew up in an atheist household. I was in a family that was running away from religion, and then I came back. I became a religious person, and now I'm not a religious person, but I'm a deeply spiritual person. And so, you know, bring it into all aspects of your life. Don't see
mm.
any reason why not to.
And the calling on, pulling in all of the whatever we can, which higher self would perhaps resonate with a lot of people. And I think that speaks quite well to something called MAP. That's how we met, through MAP coaching, and you went on to become a MAP practitioner. Make
Yeah.
anything possible is the acronym. That's certainly in my experience, a really powerful energy psychology. Is that how you would? Yeah.
I think yeah, yeah,
And
it's
about
mhm.
making the unconscious conscious. I would love for you to speak to something about MAP and how that
Yeah,
can.
yeah. So MAP, right, exactly. So MAP is a trademark name. Underneath of it is something called process healing method. And it was created actually by an experimental psychologist out of Canada named Dr. Gary Flint. And he was in the EFT world. He was using tapping very successfully, which most practitioners will have those kind of results. I think he said like 85% of his clients would be cured of stuff. In the world of psychology, unheard of in the traditional ways. But it is actually quite typical in the EFT world. So a little plug again there for the efficacy of EFT.
Mm.
Yeah, so I got interested in MAP uh, really to help myself and also my clients. And my criteria for techniques that I want to bring to people would be doesn't require technology so much. It's portable, pretty easy to learn, pretty easy to use, and it works. And so we'll call it MAP is meets those criteria. And it's really interesting because it identifies the fact that we are more than flesh and blood. And it uses the unseen parts of us, we'll call the superconscious, to help us heal. And it's quite remarkable. And I use it with my clients that are open to it and that want it. And it dovetails quite nicely with EFT. They actually can use a little bit of EFT with this process healing method. And then it gives my clients even another tool. So EFT is a tool that they learn. It's not just that they're receiving a session with it. They will actually learn it because it's really easy to learn. And then with the MAP, the same thing. They will learn a version of this process healing method that they can use on themselves throughout the day as they encounter resistance to stuff.
Mm.
No. Mhm.
You touched on before following the nudges of our heart, what lights us up. And I know one of the things that really touched your heart was to help the children in Ukraine, in war-torn areas. What I know that you've worked with EFT and perhaps other modalities with these children. I just wondered what shifts perhaps you've seen in these
Yeah.
children, and yeah, I would love to hear more about that.
Thank you for mentioning that. It has absolutely become my highest excitement. And I do that work pro bono. And it's still my highest excitement. And I just want to put it out there for people that, we've been convinced that, the riches of our world are money.
Mm.
And again, I'm stealing from Bashar on this one, is that, that's one form of energy that we get. But again, at the end of the day, money is just energy. And so if we get this abundance coming our way from working on a non-moneyed adventure, it's still abundance. And that's what I've really learned and feel. It's like, man, I just wake up and I think, what can I do to advance helping these kids and adults in Ukraine? And I've been
Mm.
doing that work as part of a team for over 2 years. Unfortunately, the war is now 2.5 years old. And here's a great example of the kids. First off, these kids are um, generally in Chernihiv. This is northern Ukraine. And we work in a group. I don't have Ukrainian skills. I'm relying on their teacher to translate. And it's funny, those of us who are helping them joke, but we don't really know what that teacher's saying. We don't really know how this translation is getting through there. But we do have video, and we can see these kids are tapping on the spots. So that's cool. And the first time, or the first couple times really, that we did this, I could see it is that the kids kind of in the front row and they're just sitting in chairs like in a classroom setting. They would slump, okay, like within 30 seconds of us tapping. And, the the old school teacher and coach in me would say, "Hey, sit up straight." No, the EFT practitioner in me is like, "Oh, this is so cool. These kids have just relaxed in a way that, is profound." And you see kids doing other signs of it too. They yawn. So slumping and yawning, you think, oh, they're being disrespectful. They're not paying attention. No, what's happening is their physiology is responding to the tapping.
Mm.
And all this stress that they have from having multiple air raid sirens every day of their lives for the last 2 years is being released in some way. And it's a
Mm.
beautiful thing. Another example of it is, so there's two groups of kids. One is a public school group, and then the other is a church school group. I believe one of the young girls in the church school was brand new to the other kids we had seen multiple times. And this new one just joined in, and she had, according to her teacher, been absolutely mute. I mean, she didn't say a word. She was too shy. She just was totally withdrawn. And she joined in on the tapping. And afterwards, she went up to the teacher and she spoke for the first time. And she said, I think I can teach this to my granny.
Oh.
Which is beautiful that she spoke where she had been too reserved in the past. She was too scared, right? And then secondly, that she could even articulate that, oh, this would be good for somebody else in my family too. And then to bring it to them, I hope that happens. And that's really the name of the game for the work in Ukraine, which is there is no way that the mental health of the individuals of that country can be fully addressed by the licensed mental health care professionals there. It's just a numbers game at this point. Even in the United States, we don't have enough licensed people to address the needs of the population. This is according to the National Institute for Mental Health here in the United States. And we've got about 46 licensed psychologists and psychiatrists per 100,000 people. Reportedly, I've been told in Ukraine before the war, there were 8 per 100,000 people. And now there's a war. And, it's just devastated. And so the only way that, or at least I see it, is that an integral part of the solution going forward is for the non-degreed person like myself, the unlicensed practitioner, to learn techniques that have been shown to have good efficacy, fancy word for they work, and then to bring them into daily life and use them frequently. And so we create then a cultural cue or a cultural norm for somebody on the bus who sees somebody upset, or the kids in Chernihiv. I've been told now when they go into the bomb shelter, they do two things: they pray and they tap.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I mean that's exactly what I want to see happen. Is that we've got the segments of society in Ukraine that I can bring this to, and then they can communicate amongst themselves. So presently, my strategy is children, because children are really influential. That's a kind of the pragmatic reason. The loving reason is that they're children. You want to help a child. The other group is the military. The military in Ukraine desperately needs to have solutions like this. That's another topic. And then sports. I've not worked with a Ukrainian athlete yet. I've got my feelers out there to see if I can do that somehow. And those are three influential groups in society. And then hopefully, the word gets spread as to how to do this. And it's at least one tool that can be used that can make a big difference quickly, cheaply. In fact, there's no cost to it once you learn it. And yeah, so I just talked a lot, Susie. What comes up for you when I said all that?
Well, there was a few things I really really appreciate. There's all sorts of wonderful stuff in there. First of all, I really appreciate you speaking to you spoke again of the abundance not necessarily coming from monetary exchange, and I just think that's something really important to ponder on, because I think I know even for myself, the sometimes if you're creating a business from scratch, the first thing you're wanting to do is how can I make my first dollar, or pound, depending on where we are in the world. And I think then we limit ourselves massively, and we've kind of boxed ourselves in, and then coming from a very, a kind of a lower frequency place. I think the magic is in giving, 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 and so I love that you spoke to that. And secondly, when you speak about I know for myself in meditation, the magic comes from reaching that place you spoke of before, that kind of neutrality, and the because I've actually sat with the fear or the whatever the gunky, clunky feeling might be. So when the children there that you're working with, you're seeing them release energy in the form of yawning, or their physiology has changed. Is that because they've confronted fears head on? What's going on there?
No, it is, the beauty of it is that they are not having to confront head on. The kids are different than adults. I've worked
Right.
with young athletes. When I first started, I was a little league coach here, and little league means, like 8 to 12 years old. And I would, their parents would hear about Coach Fox does some weird thing, but it really helps their kid play. And so they'd bring their kids to me, and I would be in an office at that point. And this is all, of course, pre-pandemic. And so I would say, yeah, come back in an hour. Well, what I learned was that these kids, maybe like after 10 minutes, they're done. They're cleared, because kids just have less layers of gunk, as I call it,
Right.
to peel away. Yeah. And so I would see the signs of a cognitive shift, which is, again, fancy words for, they yawned, or their face changed, their body language changed. And I knew they were done. And so um, these these kids in are are really in a state of, the kids in Ukraine are really in a perpetual state of massive stress right now. The whole society is. And if they can just get a little bit of this tapping, things just fall away. It's a little more complicated with adults sometimes.
Mm.
Sometimes we get these, 1 minute miracles, as we say, in the adults, but the kids, man, that's why I'm an advocate of it all. It's too easy to not do. Hey, everybody, if you're a teacher, just tap with your kids for 3 minutes before class. Do something. Another 3 minutes at the middle, and another 3 minutes at the end. By the way, three is not a magical thing here. I just made it up on the fly. I'm just saying, do a little bit, and you'll
Mm.
be surprised at what an impact it can make.
Mm.
And the forward-thinking teachers that I've met, they do that. They start their day with kindergartners, or any age, but I've met kindergarten teachers like, oh yeah, we tap as a class to get going in the morning. It's like, oh, that's brilliant. That's
Mm.
brilliant. So again, are these kids facing something head on? No, they're kind of living it head on. I guess they are facing it, but it's not like I have to say to them, you know, let's talk about, you know, your childhood or whatever like that. That's the beauty of this. I don't have to be a therapist. In fact, I'm not even allowed in the United States to call myself one. That's somebody else who's got a licensed, you know, set up there. Um, these kids are benefiting from a very mechanical process of converting, tapping on myself here, converting mechanical energy into electrical energy. And it seems the way the human body is set up is that that has a big impact on us. And why wouldn't
Mm.
it? Because everything is energy.
Mm. All intrinsically linked.
Yeah.
I'm aware of your time, so just a couple of more questions. You spoke before about finding fulfillment. I would love to know what fulfillment means to you.
Yeah. Definitely. Great question. And, you know, we're, I think as a society, we've buried that question for hmm, maybe the last
Millennia.
100. Yeah. I was gonna say maybe the last 100 years, but maybe longer. Yeah. It depends on which culture, but Western has
Mm.
definitely buried it for a long time. And we're blessed now to have an opportunity to rediscover it. Um, if you think about what happens for multiple levels, why did we abandon that question of fulfillment? Uh, Part of it was external, in that we were, given this mantle of achievement. Society says you must work hard and raise your family, get that house mortgage, and if you're lucky, you get a few years there before you die in retirement. And truly, that was looked at as a successful life. that's a societal success. Fulfillment would, to me, means recognizing who you are, know thyself again, discovering what lights you up, again, highest excitement, and then making decisions in alignment with the values that are inside of you or on your heart to live that highest excitement all the time. And that is great fulfillment. And when I saw the front page of the Washington Post when the invasion had begun in Ukraine, I was just like, I was moved. I like in a way that I really haven't before. Um, People said, why are you so into this? There's tragedy all over the world, you know, even in your own country. Why don't you just go do something there? I don't know. It was on my heart to do the Ukrainian thing. I do have a grandfather that was born in that region. It was not called Ukraine when he was there. It was Russia in the 19 teens, 100 plus years ago. Our family did not identify as Ukrainian at all. In fact, I don't think I even knew where he was from because he'd been dead since the 1950s. And I followed that, though, is my point, is that I recognized that I was trained to do something that I love to do. I love using EFT. I love MAP to use that to help people. I was trained to help people deal with fear and anxiety so that they can live better lives. It's been in the context of athletics. Now I say, I'm going to put it in the context of war. And so that to me is very, very fulfilling. And I think if any of my clients get to that level of finding out who they are, what their mission in life is, what their life's challenge is, and then live to align with all of that, that's it. That's all. And all the
That's
other
all.
stuff, yeah, if it's accumulation of money lights you up, no, great, go for it. If it's you want to be Mother Teresa and live in poverty and help people, go for it. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe this is school for us. There is this grand plan of which we really have no comprehension. Most of us, some people who have had, spiritual awakenings, they recognize it. They may have had a near-death experience. They've been shown behind the veil, whatever it may be. Will say that, they're not afraid of a lot of stuff on earth because they recognize, yeah, this is really not real. I mean, it's here, it's real, but it's not the only thing that is involved in our eternal soul lives. And so, again, back to fulfillment here on earth, it seems to be if you can follow what lights you up, you're going to learn a lot about yourself and you're going to progress as a soul.
Yeah, I feel a huge exhale just listening to that because it's that higher, it's taking that higher perspective, isn't it? It's like kind of just
Yeah.
taking us out of the
Yeah, because it's funny
the
here on
the
earth,
heaviness.
the heaviness is immense here, immense. I mean, even with me saying all of this stuff, and I like 80% believe it. And but there's the intoxication of the earthliness, these hard substances and everything here. It's just wildly intense. And so despite most of me believing it, man, I still have my moments of just freezing. And then I use EFT or I use MAP or something, or I take a walk. And it's still a challenge for me. But without those things, God, no wonder we have so much disease and psychosis and everything. It's one thing to be linked arm in arm with people that, are like-hearted, like-minded, who have tools. That's a wonderful environment. It doesn't exist yet in our society en masse. If you can be part of a small group like that, it's wonderful to have a support network. Most people in Western culture now are not part of a support network. We're just flying solo because that's what we've been told to do. Back to, yeah, work hard, work yourself into the grave here.
Mm.
Well, that is a solution.
Not a
And
very
early,
fun one.
not a very fun one, right? And so I don't know, lots that we can say about that. I don't want this call to end, Susie.
Yeah.
Having fun
Well,
here.
before you go, I just really I've had sought your permission earlier because there was a message you sent me the other week when I felt between a rock and a hard place, and it's perhaps one of my favorite all-time messages that I will keep forever. And part of it says, I know pain, fear, and trauma. It's what launched me and continues to drive me to discover me. Interesting, you put discover me with a capital M, like our true
Mhm.
self, capital S.
Yes.
You are the same. You are magnificent, even when you feel like a wanker. Go be a wanker in the eyes of the logical, then smile at a stranger while looking deeply into their essence. Expect nothing as you desire connection. You are here to fluff things up. Just learning to smile when we do it is worth the tour of duty. And I just adore that because to me it speaks of I don't find life easy always. And
Mhm.
I spoke to you, didn't I, on my birthday about the story of Jacob. For some reason came to my mind that morning, the story of Jacob grappling with an angel at 90 years of old age. And that was kind of the conditioning, the programming that I received to kind of, you have to fight and struggle and strive and graft and grind for a blessing. And I find it a challenge to kind of lose that. But to me that message just speaks of play when it comes to kind of sharing our gifts and sharing our art or our skills or our truest essence. How how important is play? How can we play with life rather than graft with it?
Wow, that's so great. I'm just coming off of a weekend retreat last weekend, a week ago, and that was one of the things that came to me. Um, Full disclosure, some plant medicine involved in this, and
Nice.
the medicine really spoke to me was, Scott, you need to have fun. And I had so much fun with the people around me there and the environment, and it was just clear message um, of make sure you have fun.
Mm.
And how do we do that? Well, again, self-exploration for me that involved help from some psilocybin. But I've kind of had other messages. One doesn't need to go that route. It's just something I enjoy. Um, Yeah, and so play is huge, 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 huge for
Mm.
humans, and we've taken it out of society because play has been deemed, useless in some ways. We're getting back into it, but even the things that we do are very structured. I think unstructured play is really critical for kids, and if it's critical for kids, it's probably really, really good for adults as well. And I think it's I think it's just a matter of, again, not just a matter of making it sound simple. Put it on your phone. Like take take 15 minutes a day and walk if that's your play. Maybe it's even more fun than that. Put something in there and recognize if it's a value on your heart. And if it is, it's a form of self-love, I believe. And
Mm.
you know, what I'm still learning is if I can recognize what my values are on my heart, and values really they can change, but they're pretty solid, and honor them by doing them, then I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. And it's a hard one, and again, thinking about other people, it's a hard one because society doesn't say that to do that. Society says just work hard, get money.
Mm.
Um, you look at some great people um, who did amazing things and literally ended up penniless, in fact, in debt. Here in the United States, one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, died in his home in debt, and his home then became like passageway for cows to walk through. I mean, it was just in total disrepair. This guy wrote the Declaration of Independence, you know, and
Wow.
he was not good at, I guess, at collecting money. And does that matter nowadays? Does anybody look down on him because he didn't have the money? No.
Mm.
They might have looked down on him from other things these days. Gandhi, you know, Mahatma Gandhi died with his glasses and the little white thing he used to wear. Those are his only
Mm.
possessions. Um, you know, and he's still looked at as an amazing life that impacted so many. So again, maybe the message here again is honor yourself daily. Play is certainly one of them things there, and stop worrying about stuff that is fleeting. I
I
mean, and
can't
it's easy.
control it.
Yeah, you can't control. It's
Mm.
easy to say those words. We're practiced the other way,
Mm.
and back to what I said earlier is repetition. So let's continue to practice it a different way.
Yeah. Can I ask one last question? Do you have
Yeah, of
time?
course,
You,
absolutely.
in that wonderful message you sent, you said it's the fear that launched you and continues to drive you to discover to you.
Mhm.
So you've turned fear into an ally there. I would say. How can we do that if we're
Mm.
muting ourselves constantly because of fear?
No, I think it's lowering the fear. I'm not going to say eliminate the fear because it can be, even in my own life, and I'm practiced at EFT and other stuff. Fear, there are certain things, I think it's there. It has to be there because without that, I don't learn. And that's what I'm coming up with. That from my team of guides will not let me escape this life without learning that lesson, certain lessons, and that's probably one of them.
Mm.
So use techniques to lower the fear and still, you know, face that moment where like, damn it, I'm going to have to do this, and step forward and do it, and give yourself grace to do it imperfectly. Yeah, I'm gonna do something like that today, actually, and I've tapped on it. I have lowered the fear of it, and now I'm going to step forward in a bit of faith in the process, um, that the universe has my back. Everything is going to be okay, and it always has been. Why would it stop now?
Mm. Yeah. Always had
Yeah,
enough,
it doesn't mean
always
that.
will
Yeah,
have.
and the right. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a painless life. That is not the purpose here of being on Earth.
Mm.
Even Mother Teresa complained about stuff. It's
Mm.
not. It's not why we're here. Is to live painlessly. That is what I tried to do, and of course that creates more pain.
Yeah,
Um,
like clinging onto the cactus kind of. We can hold a cactus without it causing us any pain. We can hold it gently, but when we cling onto it,
mm,
like with all our might, that's
mm,
where all the suffering comes, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. Mm, that's a good one.
Um, I interrupted you there. I felt like I interrupted you there. Did you have anything else to say?
Mm. I think that as much as I love processes that can be self-administered, like EFT, I'm tapping on myself, and that's wonderful. Um, there is greater healing, it seems to me, in a group. And I think I can extrapolate from that is that while one can be on the mountaintop, contemplating one's navel, and that's wonderful, there seems to be greater power in participating in a group and in
Mm.
life, and whether that's friends or some support network, some community of sports people. You want to go bowling every Saturday night? Yeah, go bowling. um, I would just put that out there for people, and maybe I'm saying it for myself too, is to continue to be part of connections with other people that are nurturing and that will help you to recognize the values that are in your world, on your heart, and try to take some daily actions that are inspired towards those, or that are in alignment with those values. Yeah.
Mm.
And that's, I'm going to say one more thing. I have coaches too. So one of the coaches that was helping me said, I used the word brave. I was really being judgmental on myself. And I said, I haven't been brave enough, to do X, Y, Z. And she said, Scott, I'm going to just change your verbiage a little bit here. It's not about brave. It's about alignment. Once you get truly aligned with a value, then it becomes easier to step forward with some action. And so it's not like you're not brave enough. It's that just haven't quite recognized what the value is and then gotten truly aligned with it so that the action that follows feels quite natural.
Mm.
I like
That's
that.
wonderful. And I think that's then where the magic is, and that's where the synchronicities and the things that will come into existence, because we're coming from a place of that centered alignment, as you speak of.
Yeah, because where
Would
do
you
those
like?
values
Oh no, sorry. Go on. No, go on.
I was gonna say, so where do those values even come from? I think that we are imbued with certain values inherently as we come into this world. We before we before we breathe our first breath, I believe from a soul perspective, we wanted to learn certain things, and
Mm.
therefore we had certain values in there, and those unalienable values, we'll call them, are to be respected. And then I think other values we do pick up through interaction here on earth,
Mm.
and those are to be valued too.
Yeah. You can absolutely say no, but would you like to share what the thing is that you're doing today that's requiring courage?
Yes, I am going to I'm going to tell people that I'm going to Ukraine.
Oh,
Yes, I'm telling family members,
oh
and
wow.
yes, and I can imagine that uh, there might be great concern from them.
Mm.
And part of me is like, I don't want them to have that concern, just
Mm.
go and don't tell them.
Right.
Um, and so I have had some trepidation about that, fear, and that's been lowered a lot. And so now I'm able to do it. Is it a zero, zero fear? No, it's not zero,
Mm.
but I'm able to do that. Yeah.
Mm. That's wonderful. Well, I hope that really goes well. All of it, the trip and telling your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there
Thank
anything
you.
else that you would like to share before we go?
I think if any listener hasn't gone down the path of self-examination, again, back to the phrase know thyself, um, I would encourage them to do that.
Mm.
It's not an easy path for most of us to do. It is absolutely a path of growth and great value um, here
I
on
can think
earth.
of some other words as well.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Well, let me tell you a little story before we
With
go.
growth and
So,
value, though. Well, let's stick with growth and value.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it is definitely full of, all the other letters and words we can think of here.
Mm.
When I was starting my personal growth journey in earnest, call it 7-ish, 8 years ago or something like that. The question though really is, when did it really start? Well, that's another point of view. But I remember working with a coach, and I said to her, I want to work with you and get to know my true self and live from that point. And she's very wise and experienced person, trained in all sorts of interesting things. And she takes a deep breath and she looks at me in the Zoom call and she's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I just said it. What do you mean? And she pauses and nods a little bit, looks in the camera. Are you really sure? I was like, yeah. And I didn't know what she knew. She knew that it is not for the faint of heart. and that a whole lot of stripping away of stuff was about to come into my life. And oh boy, was she right, you know? And it's one of those things where people say, God, if I knew it was going to be like this, I'd think twice about signing up. You know, that goes for the whole Earth School. You know, it is not uh, without pain, and um, definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, I really feel you on that, that the moment we call in to be our truest, highest self, or to certainly live, um, yeah, to be the best version of ourselves that we possibly can be. It's been my experience that then all of the shadows come up to be seen, to be highlighted. I think, but
Yep.
yeah, but what a journey! What a wonderful journey that we get to experience.
Yeah. And, you know, and have doing what we do, you and I do, is a way to continue to move through it, which is, you know, for listeners, Susie and I are friends. We send each other messages occasionally um, of woe and encouragement.
Yeah. And a lot of chuckles along the way.
Yes, and chuckles, chuckles, absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of the great things too, is to use, you know, not to be too clinical again, but laughter is great medicine. It's great energy
Mm.
shifter. One time, I'll
Mm.
share one story with you. One time, as a client of somebody who was my early mentor and practitioner in EFT, um, I was with her in a session. She's my practitioner, and we get to a subject, and we're tapping. From out of the blue, I go into hysterical laughing. It was not about a topic or anything. There is just the way my body just decided to move energy.
Mm.
And it was the craziest thing. And my mentor, who's a teacher of EFT for other people and certification here in the States, she will tell that story. It's like, hey, practitioners, sometimes people cry, sometimes they laugh. Let me tell you about this guy, you know, Scott, who did this. It was really wonderful. And people are generally jealous. They're like, damn, Scott, I only cry when I'm a, you know, client.
Oh, I love that. Oh, also, does not speak to the importance of collaboration that you were speaking of. I feel like we're entering in a time like never before of we're going to evolve, expand, and grow so much quicker when we're working together, collaborating, co-creating, co-working. I think this is a time of magic as regards kind of community, I think.
Yeah, we are definitely in a different space right now, literally in terms of space, because that's always happening, but in terms of metaphorically, what people are feeling and thinking and experiencing, there's just massive change that has happened in just this time period, where me being involved with EFT, call it, you know, 16 years, where I couldn't talk about it with anybody because I wasn't ready, they weren't ready, or something, I don't know, some combination thereof. Now, oh man, people are ready, they're talking about it. I am, you know, here I am, this unlicensed practitioner here in the United States, making presentations to I've talked to CEOs and other, you know, directors of medical groups in Ukraine. You know, how does that happen? I'd like to
Mm.
somebody to explain that. And, you know, and my ego says, well, you're hardworking, Scott, and you've done a lot of things, you're an expert, blah blah blah. I just think that there's a different energy out there, and yeah, there's an energy of desperation in Ukraine, just like there's an energy of desperation in some of my athletic clients, you know. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing for Earth society, is that we are now opening up because we have massive stress, like maybe we've
Mm.
never had before. I don't know. That's a strong statement, but there's definitely all the stuff that's gone on in the past 5 years has been shattering to a lot of the old paradigms and institutions and people that are
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I can testify to that.
Yeah, me
Scott.
too.
Yeah. Scott, bless you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so, so deeply appreciative. Thank you. And
Thank you,
yeah.
Susie.
Oh, and I'll put all your details into the notes underneath this chat,
Please.
and if people want to reach out to you, perhaps book a session with you, they can do that.
Please do. And I
Bless
would
you.
say that to anybody is if anybody has any questions either about anything I've said here or EFT or MAP, process healing method. I'm a real person. I've got a podcast, by the way. It's called the Spirit of Coaching podcast. It's on all major platforms, as they say. And we present new solutions to traditional sport coaches, which could be anything from a new technology that helps advance brain health to a psychic coach who's teaching sports people how to use their intuition. And I think my point is that I'm a real person. Just contact me, and I'd love to have a little conversation with you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom, friendship, and magic. Bless you. Thank you.
Susie. Bye-bye.